Arnout, we have now the first results from the National Sports Governance Observer. If you can outline some of the main results of that survey, what are the first results telling us?
Well, we have 274 indicators of good governance, and they have been applied now in 10 countries, 10 different countries, 9 European countries and Brazil. So to pick one indicator out of those results is actually impossible. There are so many different results. There are also variations between the countries. If I do have to take one indicator out, I would say that on average, athlete involvement is something that is lacking in most European sports federations. Athletes are, for instance, not involved in the drafting of multi-annual policy plans. And I think they can improve there. Another example is that on average, sport federations in Europe are demonstrating deficits with regard to societal responsibility, meaning that they do invest resources in doping, anti-doping, they do invest resources to tackle match fixing, but with regard to environmental sustainability, combating sexual abuse, and so on and so forth, they're quite lagging behind. So there are definitely some improvements to be made there.
2 years ago we had a published study about the international federations, how they were doing in the good governance field. How do you think the national federations are doing in comparison to the international ones?
It's a difficult question, and again it differs per country. But on average, I would say that it was striking that quite often the national federations were outperforming the international federations. And the one thing that is very important, I think, is that most national federations were very cooperative.
How far do you think sport organizations can go by themselves, and what is your role if you should try to define that?
Well, first of all, I think with the many scandals that we have seen, I think we basically have two options. And by we, I mean researchers, but also journalists, NGOs, government actors. Either we accept that the world of sport is doomed, that it is a rotten world. That's the first option, and we continue to say how bad everything is. Or we accept that there might be structural solutions for problems, structural solutions that can mitigate corruption problems, not resolve corruption completely, but mitigate corruption problems, and then subsequently see whether or not sport federations and sport organizations are actually implementing these structural solutions. And I'm talking about good governance here, transparency, democracy, accountability. We have seen some improvements in the past few years. Some international federations have implemented better governance. There is also some action by the Association of Summer Olympic International Federations, so things are moving.
Has it become more difficult to evaluate a sports world which is actually trying in certain corners to reform itself?
Yeah, look, I mean, 10 years ago it was very easy to say FIFA is not transparent. I think we all knew that FIFA was not being the most transparent organization in the world. But now we have seen that FIFA, for instance, has engaged in a governance reform process, 2 reform processes. So it becomes much more difficult now to say where the problems are. You cannot say that everything is bad in FIFA. Some things have improved. So you must be much more nuanced in your assessment. We need some real clear data and some clear evidence, some nuanced assessments to really know where to apply pressure. Because I do think that we need to continue to apply pressure to international sports governance, to international sport federations, to sport governing bodies, and so on.